welcome to another episode of Nolzur's Marvelous Tutorials with RealmSmith. Tonight is a unique episode. We're not live tonight. I am currently, while you're watching this, in Montreal at the Universal Trade Show, so I couldn't do this live on Sunday night, so I'm going to be talking to myself for the most of the night. But we're really excited to dig into the Kraken. This mini is huge. This is one of the first ones that you can actually see in this camera angle from this shot from that distance. It is awesome and beautiful, and we're super excited to jump into that. One big announcement that we want to say before we actually get into that is it was announced earlier this week by WizKids and then later by us as well and Vallejo that we have partnered with WizKids and Vallejo to bring paint and take events to your local game stores. What that means is that WizKids will be sending miniatures, starting with the Beholder, to select stores for the pilot project, with a bunch of Vallejo paint as well, and we will be offering tutorials via video, not live, but pre-recorded video in your store so you can paint along with our tutorials in your local game stores. It's super exciting. We're so happy to be partnering with D&D and with WizKids and with Vallejo, and so keep an ear out for that because that will be something that will be brought out to a lot more stores in the near future over time, and we're so super excited to do that. So let's dig right in. No holding back. This is probably going to be a two-part episode. This bad boy is huge. Bad girl is huge. Bad freaking monster who has killed many characters, including almost some of mine, which we'll talk about a little bit when we dig in. First off, of course, tools of the trade that we will need for this tutorial. We've got the D&D Nolzur's Marvelous Minis Kraken miniature by WizKids. This is the unpainted version. There is a painted version as well. We have some Vallejo brushes. Today we'll be using the 0, the 1, and a dry brush, as well as a larger brush for base coating because it is such a large miniature. Little cup of water for rinsing off your brushes, some paper towel for dry brushing and cleaning your brush, as well as a paint palette for your paint. Then we also have your paint list. There's a number of paints here. I think there's 18 in all. We've got number wash, sepia wash for those awesome shadows, stonewall gray, heavy red, glacier blue, off-white, green ink, and blue ink. And then we have a charred brown, heavy brown, a khaki, snow effect, which we've used before on the Frost Giant, but today we're going to try it on, well, not today necessarily, but when we get to the awesome waves that come with this and the water effects, we're actually going to use that for the froth on top, on the crests of the waves. Then we have some water texture, which we'll be actually adding, not in the typical sense to add puddles or anything, but actually to add some glossy, kind of watery, wet look to some of the areas of the Kraken where it would be coming out of the water, and some of that water would still be dripping off. As well, we have some red wash, some rosy flesh, and some moon yellow. All right, here we go, folks. I hope you are ready for this beast of a tutorial session. Again, awesome miniature, really great detail in this and texture. As you can see, I'm noticing actually just popped it out of the box. It is primed and ready to go, but I am seeing that there is some residue along the spines of where, you know, so I guess it's like almost like a fuzzy sort of thing where the, I think it's the primer maybe has kind of dried and there's got some residue on the edges. I'm literally just using my fingernail to clean that off a little bit. It's coming off very, very easy. The primer is kind of plasticky. It's got like a rubbery sort of finish to it. So just seeing this for the first time, and I'm just breaking it off, like there's a little bit of primer there that I've taken right off. And you'll get this sometimes with the WizKids minis. They prime them, which is really, really awesome for jumping right in. But like again, sometimes it leaves a little bit of residue on there. Let's see here. This is perfect. Okay. That should be good. All right. So much awesome texture on this miniature, as you can see. And I'm super excited to be painting him. He is huge. And of course, along with that miniature, so the nice thing is this actually comes off of the base. The base is a plasticky kind of water texture base. You can see that there's lots of waves in there. We're going to do some really nice green and blue ink to bring that out, as well as on the crests of the waves here. We'll add some of that snow effect to see if that kind of adds a really cool aspect to it, and kind of a realistic kind of wave aspect to that. That'll be a lot of fun. And then you have all the tentacles, of course, on the table, which will also, I think we'll base coat those at the same time. I don't want to spend too much time base coating because the whole episode would be base coating maybe. But I do have a larger brush this time, unlike some of the episodes in the past where I have been struggling a little bit to get through because, anyways, so, okay, here we go. We're going to start with heavy brown. Now, this is one of the Vallejo Extra Opaque paints. These ones are designed to go in, but on basically in one coat. This is awesome for a base coating scenario like this, where we have a really large mini, and we don't want to spend a lot of time doing multiple coats in one go. I am going to dilute it just a touch, but with these extra opaque paints, you want them to go on fairly thick, so that you get a really nice coverage over this primer. We're going to do the whole mini for the most part. I am going to do, as you can see here, kind of like in the Monsters Manual, you have a bit of kind of a lobster almost coloration and texture on its back, and I love that. I love the fact that the Kraken here is kind of a crustacean as well as kind of like a sea monster, serpent sort of scenario. So I'm going to actually use that to our advantage, but I will add the brown as a base coat across the whole back and then come back in with some deep red to transition from that color. And because we have such an awesomely large miniature that we're working with here with lots of surface area, it'll give us the opportunity to do some really fun kind of blending and texture effects and special effects, because it's a lot easier to do it on a large mini than it is on a small one. So let's go right across here. Oh, I got a brush bristle that came off of that. There we go. I'm just going to work my way around this entire miniature here. I feel like the view that I've got here is a lot more zoomed in than it typically is, but maybe that's okay for this, so you guys can see what I'm doing here. Not sure what happened there. We recently, in our Sentinels of the Storm live stream, which we're currently on hiatus on because we have a finale coming up very soon for that campaign. We're finishing off our Storm King's Thunder campaign. And so we are currently in a holding pattern. So Order of Dragon's Bane, which is our other live stream, is currently week to week on Monday nights. But in Sentinels of the Storm, which is, again, our Storm King's Thunder campaign, the players recently, and this is spoiler warning, spoiler territory, if you're playing Storm King's Thunder and you haven't got to the end yet, then cover your ears for a couple minutes, and because there is spoilers. But yeah, the Kraken has shown her face, and it was very scary and awesome kind of moment for the players, because at that stage of the adventure, the players aren't really of a level, not even close, frankly, to a level for which they would be able to deal with a Kraken. So it's kind of an oh crap moment, or it was kind of a bit of an oh crap moment when they found out that they drew the eye of the Kraken. But Krakens are incredibly powerful, legendary creatures, and are not to be trifled with. So you can see I almost, with my first drop of, or application of Vallejo to my palette, I have almost covered the entire back of this Kraken. It's going really quickly, and you can see that the coverage is really good on that. And again, that is kind of the magic of the extra opaque paints from Vallejo. It's going to be really fun to be able to hold this thing up, though, once I've kind of base coated most of it, and then have to get the ends of it, but we'll see. I do wonder why my camera did this, and it's so kind of zoomed in right now, but that's okay. I could lift it a bit, actually. I could just like, here we go. Maybe that'll help a bit. It's a little better. Hopefully you folks can see all of the detail. I am using a larger brush that I don't care too much about its bristles because I am just working this paint into this mini right now. Coverage is the key here, and coverage without clogging the details too much. So you definitely want it to get in, you definitely want it to flow, and you definitely want to get through this part fairly quickly. And you don't have to worry too much about detail, or you're more worried about coverage at this point. But applying too much paint too quickly can clog details on miniatures. So you want to be mindful of that while you're trying to get this done as quickly as possible. Make sure that when you're doing these spines that you look all around it. It's very easy to miss kind of a corner or an edge of it. I think I got it all there. And you are going to find out that, when the paint is still wet, that you'll easily kind of miss. You'll easily miss certain cracks that, when it dries, become very apparent. And that, I think, is because of the glossy nature of it. Tends to cover it a little bit. Okay. There we go, getting around the belly here. It's actually kind of cool. It's got this hole in the bottom here that I can put my fingers into to hold it while I do this. But you want to make sure you get all in, all the nooks, crannies, and deep areas of this miniature. It's nothing worse than painting a mini all the way through and then realizing, oh, I didn't get it all in there. The other good thing, though, is that washes tend to be very forgiving when it comes to that. Because when you apply your wash, it tends to get all up into the recesses and give you, kind of cover up some of your mistakes or some of the areas that you may have missed your first go around with a base coat. Doing the head here. And even though we're not doing this live right now, we are on live. So if you've got any questions or comments or thoughts, please speak up, and I will do my best to respond from Montreal. And we decide to pre-record some of these episodes like this because, when we're traveling and we happen to be at a trade show or at a convention or something, and we don't know if we have decent internet, then we have to cart all the gear. And so just to make sure that we get a episode for you in the can, and something that's usable and watchable and all of that stuff, we just make sure sometimes it's just much safer this way to get it recorded ahead of time for you than it is to try and get it done on the road. We tried to do that in the past and it's burned us a couple times, so we just want to be mindful and careful of that. These tentacles on the chin are going to be really difficult to get all up in there for sure. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, frankly. If you can see, they're really close together. So I'm not sure totally how we'll address that, but frankly, Guess we can figure that out when we get there. Or figure it out, we'll do the large areas first, and then I may go in actually with a smaller brush to do those areas. That might be the solution, because this brush is not going to fit up in those areas. Okay, so I've got basically like 2/3 of the body done here. Another squirt of heavy brown. Again, the extra opaque color is what we're using. This is an awesome miniature, like I said. Just be cautious when you bring it to the table. And if, a lot of DMs believe, or a lot of people might think that you can't bring a character into your game until your players are of a level kind of to address its challenge rating. But that isn't true. Like I said, even in the Storm King Thunder campaign, my characters are maybe 11th level, 12th level, I think. Maybe not even that high, maybe 10th, 9th or 10th, I'm not sure. Can't remember, actually, it's been so long. But that being said, the adventure is very clear to state that it's okay if your players, aren't high level, and you institute some rules and tactics for the actual Kraken itself. In this situation, it was disinterested in the players. He was fighting another character from the adventure, which I won't give because it'll spoil a major plot point of that adventure. But he was kind of busy dealing with that threat, and the players really couldn't hurt the Kraken even enough for it to notice. So, but it really still left a, it's kind of like a warning shot, like, I know you're here, but I have bigger fish to fry, as it were. And I'm not too concerned about these puny adventurers right now. So that you can have these epic level, like, holy crap moments, so that the players realize, and it's always kind of good to remind the players that this world, that your game world, that they aren't the top of the food chain sometimes. Remind them that there is power lurking underneath and in the depths. That if they get too kind of like high in their britches, there's always something bigger. There's always something more dangerous and something more scarier, I think that's always a valuable lesson. I think it's also a valuable lesson that players learn, or can learn, to really immerse themselves in the world. It feels like a real world with consequences to their actions. Real consequences that could affect their players, could kill their players even. But it adds a certain dynamic when your players think, there are things out there that can kill me. They take certain things a lot more seriously after making that sort of realization. All right, almost done the base coat on the Kraken here. Just got to do the arms. That's all that's left. Talked a little bit about this on our last stream last Monday, but we will be at PAX Unplugged. That is official now. Very excited about it. We'll be sharing RealmSmith will have their own booth, not just a table like we did last year, but an actual real booth, which we're super pumped about, kind of like we did at Origins, except double the size. And we will be selling our adventure boxes, doing demos for our adventure boxes. So if you want to experience our adventure boxes, DM'd by Brandon, who wrote the modules and the adventures, then definitely stop by the booth for a little demo and a little session. We haven't decided if we'll be scheduling actual sessions for people to play in slots, or kind of like a drop-in thing. I guess it depends on how popular it is or how busy it is. But yeah, so we'll be sharing the booth, selling Vallejo product, and also selling our own adventure boxes. And then it's attached to the masterclass booth, where we'll be doing masterclass classes on various WizKids Nolzur's minis, as we always do. Basically taking this show live on the road is what that is intended for. Just like we did at Origins. And we'll be doing that at PAX. And the nice thing is that we're in the miniatures hall, which borders the exhibit hall, right on the edge. So when they close the walls, we can still do sessions in the evenings, if that's something you guys would be interested in. Instead of taking kind of time of the day, maybe we'll do like funky, fun stuff at night, like stuff you typically wouldn't get in our master classes. We use that opportunity to get real crazy. Freaky. That'd be fun. Oop. Or we do like nocturnal creatures at night or something fun and silly like that. We'll figure it out. But anyways, that's PAX. Very excited. It's always such a pleasure and fun to partner with the awesome people at WizKids and Vallejo. Also, actually, I just released on our Instagram. If you want to follow us on Instagram at /RealmSmithTV, I just posted a photo with, well, it's a post with a series of photos in it of the Terror of Undermountain. So D&D did a contest with Adobe to design one of the creatures for Undermountain, which of course is under or within the Yawning Portal, or access to Undermountain can be found from the Yawning Portal. But they asked the community to submit designs, and somebody did. That is Will Kincaris. I think his last name is Kincaris. Ellis is his name. He won, and he designed this creature called the Terror of Undermountain. It's this big kind of troll-like creature almost with no eyes, because of course it's subterranean. It doesn't necessarily need to see as the rest of us do. I'm going to put that down because that is base coated, except for actually the chin. Maybe I will get the chin first with a smaller brush here, and then I'll come back in. Then I can continue it after we deal with the after we've dealt with the tentacles, because that happened a lot faster than I thought it would. That's the beauty of having a larger brush that you can really dig into on a large mini like this. Now this is fun. This part here, just jabbing a smaller brush into the beard. It almost feels like a beard. Into the chinny chin of this Kraken. Okay. That was actually not too bad. I think I got a lot of it. Like I said, I'm going to I'm going to brush some wash into here. And when I do that, it'll cover up a lot of those empty areas if there are any. Okay. He is going to rest. Thank you, Kraken. You have done your part for now. I am going to address your hind quarters at this time. As you can see with the Kraken, it's got its main body here, which is really cool. These are little sharks. That just shows you kind of the size of this thing. But it's got all these tentacles that kind of come off its back, almost like its back legs. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to base coat all of these in the same color. Now, we want to be really careful. We don't have any clear effects on the actual Kraken because it comes apart. But on this one, it does not. On this one, it is connected. Basically, I think this whole piece was actually once a clear effect, and then part of it was primed. So what we want to do is we want to get in here and we want to be careful and not get this stuff on that is the one area where, you know, on miniatures usually I say don't worry too much when you're base coating about neighboring areas because you're going to be painting over those anyways. Doesn't really matter so much. In this scenario it does, because these clear effects will take this paint and it'll make it opaque, and then you lose the clear effect. There's no longer clear. I've done a little bit on here, not too concerned about that much, but you just want to be mindful of that. I mean, another option is that once I've done that and I'm like, oops, that's not cool, and come in with a clean brush and just wipe some of that off, like so. A little bit of water. You come in and like clean it up a little bit. But we're just going to base coat these tentacles real quick. And this is the way to save speed on large minis. And even across, like if you're doing an army or you're doing multiple versions of kind of the same character, with or different characters with similar colors, is kind of like the conveyor belt idea. I call it batch painting, where you're basically taking the same color and applying it across multiple miniatures in the areas that they need, because that saves drying time, it saves color change time, it saves a lot of different things. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and base coat all of these tentacles. I think half of these tentacles though, are going to be kind of a fleshy color, and half of them are going to be this brown kind of color. Almost like this. You can see that this is kind of like pinkish color on the underside, and then on the outside is like this kind of harder, thicker skin area. I think I want to do that. I think I know which side of this one. I think this side's going to be the pink side, but I'm going to base coat it all with this heavy brown, because that'll give us a really good base coat to work from, and you won't get any primer showing through. Okay. Ooh, hands cramping. We're getting old, folks. We're getting old. Okay. That is tentacle number 1. I'll put that down. Now the pre-painted version of the Kraken is actually quite a bit darker than we'll be doing. I'm a bit of a purist, so I like to kind of stick as close as possible to the subject matter. So we're going to try and get a result fairly close to the monster manual. Lots of cool little effects we'll do on the skin. Oh, totally just caught the edge of the Kraken here with my bracelet. There's a lot going on this table, folks. It is busy. It is busy today. Okay. Now this brush is a little big for this. I'm actually having to carefully go around it because I don't want to, for the base part, to get around these clear effects, it's a little large. But that's okay. When I get up here, look at this. Just real nice and quick. I just want to be really careful, especially when you're doing these clear coat, especially like the clear effect areas near the bottom. I start a little higher up with my brush, I'll show you here, and then I ease into it. Rather than jabbing it right in and trying to get it right away, I start a little further up and then kind of slide my bristles in, so you can kind of see which way they go in, which way they kind of approach the area, so you're not over brushing any of the areas. Go. Beautiful. So that is 1/2 of that. I'm going to flip it over, and we've got the other half. I think I do. I think they kind of look like earthworms, these things, a little bit. Kind of gross looking. But I think it'd be interesting to find out which side I make kind of the fleshy side. I think it's going to be this one. Or maybe not. I don't know. don't even know if I'm going to do that. We're figuring it out as we go, folks. We are figuring it out as we go. Okay. There. We have 4 more to do. This is the longer process, of course. It always is. Base coating usually takes the longest. And for me is the least interesting, least fun for me. It's a bit of a means to an end. But, you know, when I'm typically, if I'm painting for myself, which doesn't happen a lot anymore, every once in a while, but if I'm ever painting kind of in my own spare time for myself, or trying to get a project done real quick, like I did for the Founders and Legends minis, I will put something on in the background that I don't have to watch, you know, or that I can glance at every once in a while, because it's good to recalibrate your eyes. If you're looking at something really close and then you have something in the background on a screen, say a monitor or a phone, sometimes I'll put my phone in one of these kind of arms, kind of at eye height, so I can just kind of glance at it every once in a while. It really helps your vision not to kind of blur, and helps your eye health to refocus, so you're not getting tunnel vision while you're doing it. But one thing I'll do is I'll watch either I'll put a podcast on, like a video, one of my favorite podcasts, or I'll watch Critical Role or something like that, where I can listen to it mostly. I don't really have to watch it so much all the time, unless there's like a really intense moment, or Matt puts down one of his maps or something like that. Terrain gets on the table, so on. Something I don't have to pay attention to too much, that I can paint to as I watch, and that helps the time go a little faster, especially during the kind of these more tedious steps. Man, my hand is cramping up. Another thing too is to get like a miniatures holder. I have one in the other room that I probably should have used for this, but I wasn't sure I was going to be doing the tentacles today. But I figure while I'm here with the heavy brown, I might as well get it done. Cool. Or maybe I make it fleshy, or kind of at the ridge on the side. We'll see. Again, they totally feel like earthworms. Even the color I'm doing them are kind of earthworm-like. It's kind of weird. All right. Next, this is a smaller one. I think I'm probably going to add a bit more paint to my palette here. A little bit more paint. Again, diluted a bit so it goes a little bit further. Get a bit more coverage that way if it flows a little bit better. And then it's not going in as thick, and it's not obscuring any detail you don't want it to obscure. Carefully working my way into the clear effects. Starting a little higher and working the bristles into the corners. That's pretty good. And this heavy brown, I actually really like the way it's going on. I like it as a base for this guy. We're going to be using an umber wash on this probably next, because washes take the longest to dry, and we want to make sure we get onto some other steps today. So we'll get to those washes right away, nice and quick, or as quick as possible. And we have our trusty dryer as well, little fan. It looks like the actual Kraken, the main body of the Kraken, is drying really nicely. It might be almost ready to go, which is good news for us. This is a really thick tentacle. It's really kind of cool, actually. During the Kraken encounter in our live stream. And you can watch all these online, most of them. That one might be uploaded. We're not very good at doing that. We need to get better at catching up on our uploads. But one of our characters, who's played by Jeff Roney, who actually does editing on our adventure boxes. We all share in all of the stuff here at RealmSmith. Wear a lot of hats, which happens at kind of a smaller company studio that's starting out. But Jeff plays he plays a bard, and his name is Roscoe Tossbottom, and he is an air genasi bard, and he has polymorph, and so he, as soon as kind of the Kraken did his thing, actually it was before that, I think, that he had it up, but anyways, he turned into a giant shark, and went down to kind of challenge the Kraken and stop it from doing something that the party didn't want him to do. But it was kind of cool because, these tentacles usually you use at the surface, kind of reaching up for the characters, then eventually the Kraken body maybe comes up. And I don't even know if I would have shown that part necessarily, like the Kraken actually arising, because frankly they wouldn't be seeing it and it wouldn't necessarily be coming up to meet them. But he actually got to see it because he had the ability to swim under, which was fun for me, not for them so much. All right, last one. Save the biggest for last. And this will be the final tentacle that we have to base coat. And then our base coating's done. And we can move on to the wash to kind of try and give some depth to the whole thing. Today was a big day. My son actually turned 13 today. I am officially the father of 2 teenagers, which is insanity when I think about it. But it's been fun. They're really, really great kids, and couldn't ask for better kids, frankly. And yeah, he plays in our noob stream, actually. He plays in the Tales from the Shattered Shield live stream that we do kind of once a month. We've been playing catch up lately, so it's been more often than not lately. But we walk or play our noob players, which are basically the new players for RealmSmith, through our adventure boxes and through the modules. That's kind of how we play test them and kind of give tips and tricks to those subscribers for our adventure boxes. They kind of get an inside look of how we run them through those streams. So you guys can check those out. Most of those are live on our YouTube page at youtube.com/RealmSmith. And then the VOD of this, folks, will be uploaded to the D&D YouTube and to the RealmSmith YouTube after the fact as well. So if you're watching and you're enjoying it, but you don't have the miniature yet, you still have to pick it up, or you don't have the paints that you need necessarily, you have to go grab some new Vallejo paints, or even the texture paints and the environment stuff. Anyways, whatever it is, whatever the case may be that you can't paint with us live, I don't even know what I was talking about. It was really good, though. I felt like I was making a good point. It's actually quite late in the evening on Friday. But what was I saying? I was talking about... I don't know. Oh, the noob stream. Anyways, yeah. He plays on the stream sometimes. So, and he loves to paint miniatures. And just got his first professional commission, actually, like 2 months ago. And he's working away at it. It's an undead army for a good friend of ours by the name of Turbo. He, Ethan, who is my son's name, was at Origins with us and helped to run our master classes and set up and stuff, and he would sit every class and paint the miniatures that we were painting there. And of course, they were all WizKids Nolzur's miniatures. Came back with a whole bunch of minis that he just loved. And he fell so in love with it that we'd go out on the evenings at Origins, and he'd be like, Dad, I appreciate, that you guys are going out or whatever, but can I stay back in the hotel and actually finish my miniatures? Which is so cool, so proud. And, yeah. And so he came back, and one of my good friends saw what my son kind of was capable of, and was like, I want to be his first commission. And here we go. It's really, really fun, exciting. And my son was over the moon to be able to have his first commission at 12 years old. It's pretty stinking cool. Okay, this is almost dry. There's a couple little areas that I'd like to address. Kind of there and on the fingertip here. But we're almost ready for a wash on this one. In fact, I think we are ready. I just have to be careful, because the worst thing you can do, or one of the biggest issues or problems that you run into, is when you try to apply a wash, or sorry, not a wash, yeah, a wash on a dry base coat. Doesn't work very well. Causes all kinds of problems. So I do want to put these somewhere, but they are going to put paint anywhere they go if they fall over. So they don't have their little clear. These actually come with little clear bases rather than the black bases that you typically get with Nolzur's minis, which I like actually, because then you can see the texture of the table that they're on under it, which is a bonus in my opinion. Let's see if we can stand some of these up here. Yep, perfect. They stand up quite nicely. One of them is a little wonky on the bottom, so that's not going to stand as easily. But these guys stand just fine. All these tentacles. All right. Okay. So I'm going to start to apply a wash here, I think. Again, the reason why you don't want to apply a wash to a wet base coat, and in fact, when I'm talking about this, I'll turn this on. The reason you don't want to apply a wash to a wet base coat is they'll mix and it'll get all mucky and kind of murky. The wash will. I find these little hand fans are really great for this. Really speed up the process of drying. I am also thinking, though, if I should actually kind of get the red on there in the back first before I do a wash, because then I don't have to wash it twice. Maybe that's what I'll do, and that'll allow some of the recesses to dry a bit faster. That might work better, actually. I think that's probably what I'll do. Okay. So let's do that first. So we're going to get heavy red. See here, heavy red. It's another extra opaque color. The nice thing about heavy red is it's going to go on nice and heavy. Of course. It's a brighter red, which will be darkened down by the... I use a bit of a smaller brush here, I think. No, I'm going to use this. I use the large brush that I used before. And I'm going to stipple it on. And the stippling effect will actually allow it to blend a little bit better. Almost like it's a natural coloration of the back. So I'm just going to stipple this on like this. And stippling means I'm just dabbing and kind of pressing the paint on, because what you'll get is you'll get nice transitions here, because I can stipple really light and then I can really make it heavy in the middle and stipple light along the edges so it looks like it's transitioning from that brown color to the red. And then I'll brush it in kind of the wider areas where we want that to be a bit more kind of evident and thick. And when I load my brush, I want to go in the areas that I want to be the most red, because you'll have the most paint obviously on the brush at that time. We're just gonna up the arm a bit, the shoulder, like that. Real fun. Now I want these spines to be really red, kind of like they are in the Monsters Manual, but still having a little bit of brown showing through. So I'm not brushing it on so much. I am stippling it so that we're still getting, except in areas like that where I still have a white showing through, but I still want some brown in there. I want it to feel like both colors make up the palette of this creature on the back. I don't want it to feel like two separate areas. I want it to feel like the coloration kind of carries through. And then he's got these really cool kind of like stripes, which I think I'm going to do down the side and down the arms. So I want these to be nice and red, like so. And then I might come in and do some like lines of brown. You can see here, almost looks like a lobster kind of texture, almost like you'd see on a big rock lobster. You can see I've got these lines. I looked at a bunch of like crustaceans and other sorts of subject matter before choosing the color palette, because I wanted to kind of insinuate that this is a crustacean of sorts, or has some of those aspects. And they've always got these really cool dots too along the back of the shell. These really stark white dots. A lobster does, so I'm gonna attempt that a little later to see if I can get that. See, so we're getting it right down at the back, and then along the side we're gonna stipple this on and blend it a little bit with this brown color here down the back, like that. There. You can see how that blends really nicely because of the stippling, and on the other side as well, the blend is there. Really nice. Okay. I think that's what I want for that, and then I'm going to come back in with some more red here onto the head. Now the head, you can see it kind of has it. Now I got to be careful. See how kind of strong it came in there. So I want to, because it's loaded the most that it will be. So I am going to have it sort of on the ridge of the head, like that, coming up the ridge, and then a little bit on the crown above its eyes, and that's it. So I don't want it to be too thick, just want a little bit. And we're going to do all kinds of other things. I think I am going to do it on his horn, his horn things here. There. I really like that. I don't necessarily like how low I came here, but that's okay. We can deal with that on some of the next kind of steps. Now what I will do is, so that is kind of the back of it. It's got this kind of crustacean feel. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with a different brush that has kind of a thinner, because it's a shorter bristle brush, this one here, I'm going to create stripes along the arms. So some more heavy red, and you can see that the red dries a lot darker than it was. You can't see my palette there, but it dries a lot darker than it was in the palette. And we're going to put washes on here. So the umber wash is really going to darken all of it even further. So we want this to remain pretty kind of fine. This brush should be kind of thin, if that makes sense. And then you can see these kind of stripes that go down the arm. So I'm going to basically do like this and create these cool stripes. In fact, these are too, they're almost, this brush is too wide. I don't have enough control. And I guess for me, brushes are all about control and how much control do I have with a certain brush or not with another. So I'm just going to use a smaller Vallejo dry brush that has seen better days for stippling here, and I'm just going to come in and I'm going to stipple. Again, with the stippling, it blends it a bit better, makes it look a bit more natural than just kind of brushing it across. I'm just going to stipple these. Stipple these stripes in. Yeah, that's cool. There's one there. They're fairly close together in the subject matter and the reference here, so I think I'm going to put another one right here. Oh, I had some paint on there and I transferred it to his hand, but thankfully we've just done base coating, so if I have to fix that, I can. It looks like it kind of stops part of the way down here. So I just want to maybe one more, and they're not going to go as far near the bottom. That's pretty much as far as it's going to go there. Onto the forearm, this one. How many do I have on this side? I want it to be a little kind of symmetrical. I do want it to feel natural, so I've got 1, 2, 3, and then I want one more down here. Like that. Looking cool. I like that a lot, actually. I like how that looks. Very cool. And then there's some red kind of between his thumbs and between his fingers in here, but we can add some of that later, I think. I want to maybe add that with some washes. But I am going to put some, you can't see his kind of underbelly here, but I am going to put some here. It almost feels like he's like a prehistoric creature when you do this a little bit. Kind of a almost like a dinosaur coloration. Love that. Get those stripes going. Krakens are ancient beings, so for them to look prehistoric is probably good to make that kind of assumption. So you can see that. It made some cool stripes down the side. Nothing on the belly. We don't want that. It's almost like they've kind of evolved past being prehistoric or are evolving past it too. Okay. I'm not a scientist or paleontologist or any of that stuff, so although paleontology I think is the study of bone, so no idea what I'm talking about. I know Ross from Friends was a paleontologist. That's pretty much all I know about paleontology. Okay. That was a bit too wet, but it'll dry fairly dark, so I'm okay with that. Okay. Cool. I think that's enough red. I think I've added more. Oh, I am supposed to add it to kind of the weird tentacle things on his jaw. So I am going to come in here and stipple that in and kind of brush it onto the tentacle parts. But I am going to kind of stipple it onto the lower jaw here, like it's meant to be there, and blend it into the rest. And then with these specifically, I'm going to use Rosy Flesh, which is like a pinky kind of fleshy color. Yeah, that's cool. These tentacles are dry. That balances it. I was actually a little concerned about the red not balancing it all on the bottom, but the fact that there's red. I forgot about the chin tentacles. It's weird. Trying to get all of these that I can. If I don't get all of them, it's not a big deal. But I do want to get as many as possible here. And again, we don't want to completely cover this with the red. It's okay if there's some brown showing through, because it'll just blend better and make it look more natural if it's got some brown and some red in here. Almost done. Got a little bit on the bottom lip, which is okay. I'm actually I got a little bit on there. I like how it looked, so I just added more. Wasn't planning on it, but there. Okay, chin tentacles, almost complete. Knocking over tentacles here on the table. There's so many tentacles. Just a tentacle party. Okay. All right. I'm actually going to use some purple ink as well later to make it look really kind of like some of them look raw. I am going to add a little bit of red here in the center just to make it a little darker. Just so you really get the idea that there. Okay. Like that. I'm digging it. I'm digging it. Digging it. Okay. Gonna put him down just for a second. It doesn't have any red on the tentacle areas except for kind of that pink sort of color, so I'm not gonna do any striping or anything there. I'm just gonna kind of wash my brush And then we're going to move on to some washes. So we're going to use Umber Wash. Now, Umber Wash is the darker of the two washes. Sepia tends to have a little bit of like red in it, kind of a reddish, kind of rich color. Love using it for gold and parchment and things like that. But Umber is much more of a kind of earthy tone, natural kind of dirt tone. So I use it in a lot of dirt. But I also like to use it in colors that I want to feel earthy or natural. So I'm going to use one of the larger brushes here to get this wash on here nice and quick. I am going to dilute it a little bit because we want it to go a long ways. And so we're just going to, and I say this all the time about washes, but when you put a wash on, you know, I like to think of it that I'm not actually painting the wash on. I'm putting the wash on the surface and then allowing it to, I'm going to do a lot of wash here. It's going to be a lot. And then manipulating it on the surface into the recesses, if that makes sense. So yes, sure, you're painting it on at first, like this, but then you're moving it around so that it flows where you want it to flow. And it'll give you the shadows that you want. It'll go into the recesses. It'll go into the textures, especially into like these holes here, things like that, and give you the colors that you are looking for, or the shadows that you're looking for, rather. This Umber Wash actually is doing very nice, doing great things here. Now there are some areas here that it is mixing with some heavy brown that has not quite dried yet, so I gotta be careful. If you hit one of those areas and you start to see the wash get a little milky because it's mixing with wet base coat, then just move on. You'll notice too that the wash gets a little frothy sometimes. That means I'm just a little excited and I'm over agitating a little bit. So what I do in those situations is I just come back. Those bubbles will disappear in my experience, but if you over agitate, then it's just gonna look weird. So you can see it's helping to blend. It's also even helping to blend the. It's also helping to blend the red stripes in with the rest of the base coat. Again, making it look a bit more natural. There we go. I really like the color and the tone it's giving to the Kraken. And this is going on a little soapy. And what I mean by that is it's frothing and bubbling because of the way that I'm kind of applying it here. But like I said, if you let it sit a little bit, you'll notice that, oh, a little too much, diluted that a little much. Mix in some more wash. And you'll notice how, you know, this is the step where things really start to come to life. You'll see on the belly how the wash really goes into the recesses and brings out all the awesome texture and detail. Like you'll even see it in the face. Settles into the recesses, brings out all that awesome detail. So now you can actually see it. So that when you're highlighting in the next step, you're dry brushing, for example, you'll see which areas need to be dry brushed more or where you need more highlights. Oop. Glad I went with umber. I had thought about black wash, but I think black wash would have made it a little too dark. And this is making the transitions a lot more subtle. And that's what I want with this, something that's natural. For it to kind of look real, you want a subtle transition, in my opinion. At least that's my feeling. You can go pretty fantastical on color schemes and things like that, but I like it to feel kind of realistic, like this creature could actually be living. Just pop out while you're swimming along, minding your business, and all of a sudden Kraken. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now the back, this is going to take a while to dry, I'll tell you. This is going to take some time. So hopefully we can move on to something else while we allow this wash to dry. I might go through a whole bottle of wash on this. Should have maybe grabbed two. I am trying to, instead of jabbing it the way I am trying to kind of brush it on more so it doesn't kind of bubble up on me. Because then you can't really see what's going on if it bubbles up too much. Like I said, it will dry fine. The bubbles will pop, everything will be okay, but I do like to see what's going on, and when it kind of gets really bubbly and almost sudsy, it's hard to see sometimes what you're doing, so. Okay. Last hand for the wash, and we are done the wash on the main body. I'm hoping that I can go and wash the tentacles. By the time I'm done those, this will be dry, but that's wishful thinking, I think. I don't think that'll be the case, but we'll see. Okay, put that down like that. Let that dry a little while. And also, I would say that when you are putting something down to dry, I've put it down basically the way that I'd like the wash to drip, so that it looks natural. I kind of want it like that, because that is the way it would drip if it was coming out of the water. Shadows would kind of be on the bottom, so I think I want a bit more wash on the, I have to put a little bottle, there you go, get creative. A bit more wash on the face, because I feel like maybe it's not quite dark enough for me. There we go. Okay. While that is drying, some of these tentacles are not dry. Some of them are. That one is, as is that one. I'm going to go around just like I did before. Again, being careful not to kind of get the wash on the clear effects, although that's a lot safer than getting something, because at least it'll still be transparent. It'll just look like dirt in the water or something, but you still want to be a little careful with that. And with these tentacles, it's quite a bit easier. You can see how that wash into the crevices, instant shadows, liquid talent. My monsters manual always takes up a beating. You can always tell which monsters I've painted from the manual just based on the amount of paint spray located on the page. Okay, we are just about an hour in. Lots more time here. We'll get through all of kind of the base stuff, I think, today with another hour left. It's amazing how much you can get done when you put your mind to it. Now again, folks, I know we're not live, so if you do have questions or comments or anything like that that you'd like answered, typically, obviously, if we're live, I'm answering them on the fly. I'm watching the chat. I'm not doing that today, but please comment on the video. So, speak in the chat while it's kind of airing on Sunday, and we'll answer those as best as we can. But at the same time, definitely in the VOD, if you're watching this after the fact, still make those comments. Still ask those questions, because frankly, we're watching all the time when comments come through in our videos, and we will answer them the best that we can. Here we go. I've got a little Kraken conveyor belt here going. Little Kraken batch painting. A little cracker batch. That was bad. It's clearly late. I might be a little delusional, but that's okay. Like I said, I might go through this whole bottle by the time we're done here. But it's expected. This is a huge mini. These Vallejo bottles go a long way. You get a lot of paint out of them. But when you're painting a mini this size, you'd imagine, the surface area on this mini, how many kind of medium-sized creatures, 28 mil, humanoids you could paint with the amount of paint that we're using for this mini. So I am not surprised that we are going through wash the way we are and paint the way we are. I'm going pretty heavy-handed on it just because, again, when it dries, I do want to do less work on the highlighting if possible, and this will give it lots of contrast. I tend to go a little bit heavier on my washes, and then kind of balancing it out in the dry brush or in the layered highlight step. Okay, man, we are getting close here to done the washes. This one is the one that will not stand on its own until I've based it. Again, this set came with little clear bases for all the tentacles. So each tentacle has a clear base, as well as the Kraken itself has a large clear base. I love the clear base because I've got this little ocean tile that I created, that I painted up and crafted. And so I like to see all that cool ocean texture under it. And so the clear bases allow me to do that, which is really cool. And then the set also comes with a little boat, like a little rowboat, which you definitely don't want to be in. You don't want your characters to be in a rowboat when you're dealing with a Kraken. And it comes with a rowboat with oars and a little chest. Like a little treasure chest or something to go in the boat. It's really cool. It's a really great set. And when they came out with the pre-painted, couldn't wait for them to announce the unpainted version of the Kraken. And Brandon, who plays on Sentinels, he's the DM for Dragon's Bane, our other live stream. Just the other day, he was asking if once we finish the finale of the Storm King's Thunder campaign, can they go back and potentially face the Kraken, because they lost a companion cohort to the Kraken, and they're not convinced necessarily that companion is dead, believe it or not. You never know. So they want to go back and either avenge him or save him. And for those of you that have played Storm King's Thunder all the way through, know exactly who I'm talking about. But we will see. That'll be a fun little one-shot side quest after the campaign closes. Okay. I don't know. Who knows? If you guys want to see it, maybe those characters get into epic levels, which is where it really gets interesting. All right, this wash is drying still. Still got some time here. I think I'm gonna bust out my little fan, and then we can. What we typically do here during these tutorials is, if we've got some drying time and we're just kind of sitting around waiting for things to happen, sometimes we read about the Kraken or whatever creature it is that we're painting. Love to do that. I love to kind of get into the mind of the creature, understand its powers and abilities. I'm a huge geek that way. Love to kind of like understand the background and why he would have certain armor plating or whatever the case may be. So, beneath the waves, the Kraken sleeps for untold ages, awaiting some fell sign or calling. Landborn mortals who sail the open sea forget the reasons their ancestors dreaded the ocean, even as the races of the deep ignore strange gaps in their histories when their civilizations nearly vanished after the appearance of the tentacled horror. So cool. Leviathans of legend. At the beginning of time, Kraken served as fierce warriors of the gods. When the gods' wars ended, the Kraken shrugged, free of their servitude, never again to be bound by their other beings. Whole nations quake in fear when the Kraken emerges from its dark demez. And even in the middle of the deepest ocean, storms rise or abate according to its will. The Kraken is a primeval force that obliterates the greatest achievements of civilization as if they were castles in the sand. Its devastating attacks can destroy ocean trade and halt communication between coastal cities. Wow, this is drying pretty fast. Good stuff. Okay, this fan is amazing. An ominous darkness presages a Kraken's attack, and a cloud of inky poison colors the water around it. Galleons and warships vanish when its tentacles uncoil from the deep, the Kraken breaking their masts like kindling before drawing down ships and crew. Not even landlocked surface dwellers are safe from a Kraken's wrath. Krakens can breathe air as easily as water, and some crawl up rivers to nest in freshwater lakes, destroying cities and towns along the way. Adventurers tell of these monsters layering in the ruins of lakeside citadels, their tentacles twined around leaning towers of disintegrating stone. Wow, the progress of this fan is pretty great. So good. Mortal foes. Some Krakens are virtual gods, with cults and minions spread across sea and land. And that's the case with Storm King's Thunder. There's a Kraken society that surrounds it. Others are allied with Olihydra, the evil princess of elemental water, and use her cultists to enforce their will on land and sea. A Kraken, pleased with its worshippers, can becalm rough seas and bring a bounteous harvest of fish to the faithful. However, the devious mind of a Kraken... Oh, I just hit a tentacle with my... Oops. There we go. However, the devious mind of a Kraken is ancient beyond reckoning and is ultimately bent to the ruination of all things. So cool, man. I love the lore. You can see that these are drawing really nicely too. Getting a ton of awesome shadows and texture with this umber wash. Let's see, Kraken's layer. They've got a ton of layer actions, which are really cool. They have regional effects. I love regional effects. I love like the kind of the lore and effects and kind of story elements that change an environment for a creature so that you know when a legendary creature is around. It's so cool. The Kraken can alter the weather at will in 6-mile radius. Wow, center on its layer. The effect is identical to the control weather spell. Water elementals coalesce within 6 miles of the layer. These elementals can't leave the water and have intelligence charisma scores of 1 to 5. 1. Aquatic creatures with 6 miles of the layer that have an intelligence score of 2 or lower are charmed by the Kraken and aggressive toward intruders in the area. Wow. So cool. Let's get into its stats here. Some really cool stuff here. We got strength of 30, highest strength you can get. Charisma of 20, intelligence 22, constitution of 25. Now it's not very dexterous at an 11, but its wisdom is 18. Challenge is 23, folks. So basically, the challenge rating, what that means for those of you who are new to D&D or don't necessarily DM, a challenge rating is the average party level of 4 adventurers or so, what level those party members should be before they fight a Kraken. And 23 is the number given here. Multi-attack. The Kraken makes 3 tentacle attacks, each of which it can replace with 1 use of fling. So it can like fling characters. It's so crazy. It's so cool. Bite. Its bite does 3d8 plus 10 piercing damage. Of course, creatures can be swallowed by it. And there's all kinds of like, when it's swallowed, creatures are blinded and restrained. Take acid damage, of course, when it's trying to digest them. It can use its tentacle attacks, which do 3d6 plus 10 damage. It says 1 larger, smaller object held or creature grappled by the Kraken is thrown up to 60 feet in a random direction and knocked prone. Wow. It can do lightning storms, and of course it's a legendary creature. So it's got all kinds of legendary actions. Pretty crazy. It has 472 hit points. Love it. Love this creature. Okay, so some of these tentacles are already dry. They dried really fast. I can see in some of the deeper recesses of the Kraken, but I keep putting my finger in this fan. But you can see how some of it is still a little wet, but most of it is really getting there. This is going to be so much fun to dry brush. You can see the awesome texture in its arm there with that wash and how it really brings out that color. It's pulled a little bit on the bottom here, so I'm just going to wipe that off with my hand. Put my fan down and dry off my hand. And you know, down at the bottom there, it's okay if that happens a little bit because it's going to be covered by the, but it tends to pool by the fingers and by the bottom, but that's covered mostly by waves. Some of these deeper areas I want to get rid of. Around the eye here, I like the wash in there because it really it'll give nice depth and detail to that eye. So I got to decide what's next. What is the next step here for this creature? I think it's probably going to be a dry brush for the brown areas, I think. And then I'm going to dry brush the red, and then add all kinds of cool designs to the carapace, or the shell part of the Kraken. This is going to be a fun one. Okay, I think I'm going to let the rest of that dry on its own. Yep. Okay, let the rest of that dry on its own, because these tentacles are dry for the most part. A couple areas here on that one that aren't quite dry. This one has a big area there. I'm just going to wipe that off, just because it's going to take too long, and with big pooled areas, it will get rid of some of that detail, so don't want that. Let's review these quick. It's got a big drip there. We'll just wipe that. Just using my hands for that. And this guy here, he's got a big drip. Actually, we've got a big drip right at the base, which I am going to try and sop up with a clean brush very easily. Look at that, it just comes right up. We'll let that one dry more, because that one is still, we don't want drips. We definitely don't want drips. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to grab one of these smaller ones. Now, this is when I decide if I want half of it to be a bit more red than the other side, like almost like it's fleshy. I don't think so, because it doesn't look like both of the sides look the same. Both of the sides look similar in the way that they're molded, the way that they're modeled. So I think maybe just at the tip, I'll add some red wash after my dry brush, because that's kind of what I see here in some of the, and maybe a little red wash along the edges where that little ridge is, that creepy ridge. Anyways, okay, so we're going to grab some khaki. That's going to be our first highlight. We'll see if it's too bright, but I don't think so. I think it's going to be just right. I'm going to grab my smaller dry brush, like kind of medium-sized dry brush. I'm going to use this one. Again, we're going to get a lot more surface area done with that. Now for a dry brush, for those of you that don't know, load your brush with a color, then wipe most of it off on paper towel. Seems counterintuitive, I know, but that is the way that you're going to get the best result. And then what we're going to do is the texture goes kind of horizontally across the whole thing. What we're going to do is we're just going to brush the brush against the grain on the miniature. What that's going to do is it's going to deposit a dry residue onto the miniature just on the highest portions of the mini. Now this brush is a little too hard, so I'm going to go to another brush that's a bit more, it's got a bit more give. It'll be a bit more suitable for what I'm trying to do here. Basically, like I said, it's gonna deposit dry residue. There we go. Now this is a bit too wet, actually. Too much paint. Now I want to be careful, because I don't want to overbrush, which is basically like depositing wet paint with the same technique as dry brushing. I want it to dry brush, which is much more subtle, but you can see what's happening there for these. Look at that. Cool that is, right? Almost this earthworm kind of effect, where basically I'm just adding highlights to that tentacle in one go. That is almost a done tentacle there. Now, like I said, I'm going to add some purple and red ink and wash to the end of these tentacles to give them some life there. But tentacles are these tentacles are super easy to do, and you're going to get a really cool effect, mostly because of the way that they've been modeled so expertly by the great folks at WizKids. Now you can also see what I'm doing here is along the ridge, I'm using the edge of the brush rather than doing this, because you're going to get a bit more deposited there, and those should be kind of lighter than the rest of it. Go on this side. Now this khaki is a bit light, but I'm doing that because I don't want to give too many different highlights here on this. I just want to get in, get out, and that is almost another done tentacle. This guy's still very wet. In fact, he's got some serious pooling happening here. That's the problem too, when I go a little too heavy with wash and don't check it right away. You get like really heavy pooling happening, which we don't want. Sop up some of that. Okay. This does not have any wet areas, so again, load your brush, wipe most of it off, and then against the grain, like so. Now I could, if I wanted to, so if the tentacle is bursting out of the waves, or out of the water, I should say, causing waves, maybe you have a bit of reflected light from the water on the bottom side. That would be cool. Maybe I'll do that. That'd be a lot of fun, actually. I don't know if I have the right colors I pulled, though, to do that sort of effect. I don't think I have, actually. Maybe I could do it with the inks. That might actually work. We'll see. Okay, there we go. I'll have to test that on one of them. Is this guy done? Yep, that guy can go. Again, lightly brushing against the grain, the edge along the little edge area. You want that little kind of veiny edge area to really stick out. This is the second last tentacle. And dry brushing is just such a quick, especially on a miniature that has so much awesome texture, such a quick way to get really nice highlights on a miniature. If we were like edge highlighting or wet blending highlights on here, it would be double the time that it's taking to do this. And I've said it so many times before that if you're painting an army or something for a war game, then spending hours and hours on something, it's easy to justify that. For me, it's hard to justify spending hours on a D&D mini, monster mini. Player character is different. Like if you have your PC mini that represents your player character, you want to spend some time on that because you'll be using them every session as a player. But with these monsters, your characters will probably see a Kraken maybe once or twice in a whole campaign. And so if it's a showpiece or you're trying to win some awards, enter it into a competition, that's totally different. But when it comes to just play it, at home with your table, you want something that's impressive and will impress and strike fear into your players. See, too much paint on that one. So I'm just going to wipe a bit more and then go back at it, spread some of that paint out. If you want to strike fear into your players, like I said, and impress them at the table and bring out this Kraken that looks amazing, but, that you spend a reasonable time considering how much value, playtime value. I mean, there's tons of value in these miniatures. I mean, like, you know, how much you're actually going to use it at the table. I am rushing through this and messing it up a little bit. I need to move this Kraken a bit further down this way. There we go. But yeah, you just want to consider how much you'll be using it. And now some people just enjoy, like, some people don't even necessarily use them in games. They just really enjoy painting, and it's therapeutic like I do. And you just want to paint it anyways. And in that case, spend the time that you need to be proud of it. I would say that in general. I mean, even when it comes to color choices or techniques we're using, these are just the suggestions that I use for what I'm doing. But you are the boss of your mini. You are the boss of you. You guys do whatever you think will make you happy and get the best result that you're looking for. These are just guidelines and some ideas of the process that I mean, some people like to go and do crazy colors on monsters, and you know, that's awesome. I love to see it. I love to see like new takes on classic monsters, you know, purple goblins, whatever. It's fun. Whatever makes you happy. You do that thing. Okay. I think if the Kraken isn't quite ready, because I don't think it is, to get dry brushed, you know what? Parts of it is. Okay, so as we can see, folks, right there on the hand, I just take the same, I haven't even reloaded my brush yet. I'm just going to take the same color, and look at that. Look how awesome that looks already. And really, we're letting the miniature, letting the sculpt do the work. I want to stay away though from the red areas, because I would like to highlight those with something else. So I'm not going to highlight over those as much as I can. I'm going to get as close as I can without actually highlighting them. Okay, that hand is done. That arm is done. I have to put this like this again because I keep putting my hand on areas that I think is pulling paint. Load my brush again. Do some more dry brushing here. There we go. And then once I've done the highlights, we can add some inks in certain areas to give some flavor. And that'll just really bring some character to the mini. And after we're done the whole thing, we give it a nice spray down with some Vallejo varnish. I would use matte on this, matte varnish, and then go back in with gloss or water effects to lighten up those areas, because you want those to be kind of glossy, and unfortunately the matte would take away some of that glossiness, obviously. Now some of this wash is still wet, so I'm going to be really careful on the underside here. It looks like it's all dry around the eyes, so we're just going to go ahead. Now, I am dry brushing downward on these areas because the light is coming from above. I want to catch the top of it, not necessarily the underside of its eye like that. But again, I want to highlight the red with a different color. So I'm going to try and stay away from the red areas, especially on top. I'm trying to get it almost as light as it is in the subject matter. Yeah, you can see it really coming through. Look at the detail on that face now. So awesome. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take a chance and dry brush some more of this underbelly here. Hopefully I don't get into or disturb the wash that still hasn't dried yet. Not too bad at all. Again, I'm conscious that the light would be coming from above, probably obviously on the ocean. I actually kind of like the idea that this comes off the waves, even though it doesn't necessarily sit properly. It would be cool to be able to use this underwater, maybe. Then where would the rest of it be? Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Never mind. It's late, folks. Okay, so, but again, those stripes are blending still. We want to stay away from them a little bit because, again, we want to highlight them with like a rosy flesh. But, okay, I think that's it for... You can see areas like this. When you dry brush, you're adding, it transitions between the red and the brown area so nicely. Make sure to get kind of in between the stripes, if you've added the stripes in yours, like that. See how that makes the stripes pop even more. You don't want to get the actual stripes themselves, because those would be highlighted or highlit with a different color. There. Okay. Look at how that's looking. So cool. Man. Looks really neat. It's so cool. I like the way that's looking. You can even see if we throw it in the wave, how that's going to look when it's coming out. And that wave is colored with like red and green inks. It's going to look amazing. All right. I think I'm going to highlight the red areas now. I want to be careful though, because I don't want them to be too... I use this rosy flesh color. I'm going to use it for the inside of the mouth. I'm also going to use it for the carapace kind of area and the hard crusty areas on the back, because you know it's got a little bit of the lobstery sort of color, like a salmon sort of weird color. We're going to test it on one of the spines so that we can shift gears if we need to quickly. But I'm just going to kind of like, I really want this to be dry though. Just going to kind of do this. And it's a little light. It's light. It's almost too light, in my opinion. Yeah, that is really light. Don't think I like that at all, folks. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to mix it with some heavy red and see if I can bring that down a bit. Because at this point, the transition is too much. It's just too strong for me. So I'd like to bring it down a little bit and subdue it a little bit. So kind of more to this color here. Let's see if that works. Problem with mixing while you're dry brushing is you're going to have a consistent mix. That's way better. So let's wipe most of this off. And there we go. See, that for me is kind of the color I was going for. It's this kind of pinky salmon area. Very cool. I don't want to go too heavy with it because I don't want it to start to look pink. That's not the color I'm going for. It's going on a little heavy. Wipe more off. But You get the idea. You know, typically I would highlight red with orange, but in this case, I think this really helps to push the kind of crustacean look, this sort of salmon color. I think really helps give it the look I'm going for. Right on the ridge, not too much, again, because we don't want to lighten it too much, and so it looks weird. Get the chin tentacles going here, especially near the edges. I want them to be lighter as it goes down. You can see the cool kind of depth on the side there, how that looks so cool. And then I may even hit this with a red wash after, or a red ink or something. We'll see, to bring it back down, but I don't know. Okay. That actually worked out okay, in my opinion. You're getting that kind of pink feeling and flavor that is found in. Yeah, that's cool. All right. Now let's do the inside of the mouth. The inside of the mouth, I think I'm going to do with the rosy flesh, but it's going to be a base coat. Actually, I may use this color that I've just mixed, because what time are we looking at here, folks? Okay, we got about 15 minutes left in this session. I think, what do I want to do here? Yeah, I'm going to maybe use this color that I mixed for the inside of the mouth. I think that's what I want to do. I was going to go rosy flesh, but rosy flesh is really light. This color will allow me to have it look a little darker. I'm not too worried about the teeth at this point. If I get the teeth, it's fine. I just don't want to get the skin outside the mouth. So I want to go the roof of the mouth here with this color. I'm using a number 2 brush. Number 2 Vallejo brush, Torre. You get the roof of the mouth like that. And then we're going to get the tongue as well. The tongue, I'm going to be careful. Again, we're going to go over the teeth again with off-white and then a sepia wash for right now. We'll just... there. Tongue and roof of the mouth, and we're going to let that dry, and then we'll add some washes in there to make that look interesting. Cool. It's looking really cool. Really neat. Now what I am going to do next is, he's got this cool like stippling, almost like black spots all along his back. I think I'm going to go in there, and I'm actually going to do that using a technique of spraying spots onto the skin. I might do that on the tentacles as well. We'll see. But basically, I'm going to take charred brown, give it a good shake, add it to my palette, and we're going to mix that up so we get a nice, it's a dark, dark, dark brown color. Charred brown is. I figured we'd need 2 sessions for this. Okay. And then I'm going to water it down. I'm going to dilute it quite a bit, like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to spray it onto the surface. So I'm going to take my brush like this, and I'm going to pull it back, and then let the dots. Now the problem with this is I'm going to get it everywhere. So you just got to be careful. You want to get really close so you don't get it all over your nice D&D table you built. And I'm just spraying paint basically all over the surface of this Kraken. I'm probably getting it everywhere. But you can see, if you can see that on his head, you're getting this really cool kind of on the back too. It'll add a lot of realism to the skin. Making a mess of my finger, but like if I have it on here and I'm doing it on his hand, you can see how cool that is. I'm totally getting it everywhere. Oh well. The price of awesome. There we go. Do some on his other side. Dilute it a bit more. There we go. And then turn it over. Oh, I don't want to touch it because I'll actually end up well, too late. There. And I'll end up doing that. I'll end up doing that all over the tentacles as well. You can see that's added some really cool kind of skin texture to the Kraken. All right, inside of his mouth is still drying, so we're gonna let that dry. But he is ready for the next step. He is done for now. How are we doing for time here? 10 minutes. Actually, I already got some of the tentacles just for them being in the background here. Next time I'm going to set out a bunch of, next time I'll send out a bunch of paper towel and we can do that to our heart's content. Okay, I think that's all we're going to do possibly for today, unless I maybe do some of the, no, I don't have time for that, but I will do, next time I'll do that little pattern down his back, almost like a lobster pattern, and see how that looks after that. It's exciting. But he's coming together. I guess I could start with his eyes. You know what? I am going to do maybe just the part in his eyes that I want to do, because I'm not going to spray anymore. I'm not going to dry brush anymore. I might dry brush certain areas of his body just to make them pop a bit more maybe, but that's about it. So I think I'm going to just apply the base coat for his eyes in the last kind of 5 minutes that we have here. Now we're going to use moon yellow for this. I go in very carefully. That's not my favorite brush for this. I need a brush that's a bit more together. And we're going to paint some moon yellow into the eyeball. Onto the eyeball, I should say, not into it. Well, I guess it's into it too. Like that. Now the moon yellow, we're probably going to need a couple coats of this. But the yellows tend to be a little bit thinner than other pigments, just in the way that they're mixed. But once those are dry, I will add more moon yellow, and then I will wash it with a red wash. Perfect. It's looking good. See here. Maybe I'll base coat his teeth real quick. Go off-white. And then with this, what you want to do is you want to get a brush, you want to get your off-white on there. Take a little bit of it off because you don't want too much paint to go on. And you're going to use the edge of the brush and just run the edge of the brush along the teeth like this. Now it's going to look kind of nasty and messy or a little too bright at this step. I don't know how I want to explain that, but they're all white basically. But once we add the sepia wash in there, it's going to look really great. We're going to let the sepia wash do the work. And we'll have to do that next episode. Oh, jeez. A little too wet in here. I'm going to take some of the paint off. Like that. And then back in here. Along the bottom as well. As I said before, folks, if you want to watch the VOD version of this, it will be live shortly after, kind of the week after this airs on the official D&D YouTube channel and on the RealmSmith YouTube channel. You can catch all of our old VODs on either of those two channels. We're a little bit behind on our own channel with uploading them, but they're there. Our Kickstarter has closed, and our Pledge Manager will be up soon. So if you missed the Kickstarter, you will be able to pre-order some of the same things that you would have been able to at the Kickstarter. So we'll keep you appraised of the situation and send links out and all of that kind of stuff. Again, you can follow us on all the socials at /RealmSmithTV and then on YouTube and Twitch at /RealmSmith. Thank you so much for watching another episode. We will do a second episode of this next week. Tomorrow, and probably be pre-recorded again next week because I'm away. But it'll happen, and you guys will get all this Kraken goodness that you need next week. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have a wonderful weekend, and tomorrow night, tune in for Order of Dragon's Bane, our live stream at 7:30 Eastern on Monday. Have a good one, guys.